Welcome to 101 with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. I'm Lorna Virgili. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you for having me. I'm
Did
delighted
not
to
see
be
you
back.
last month, but here you are again. And a wonderful month it is.
Yeah,
On the
is.
15th, you unveiled the county's your recommended county operating budget for FY 2013, fiscal year 2013. And before we get into the details of the budget itself, and by the way, for the viewers, this program is going to be entirely regarding the budget. Before we get into the details, if you could describe getting to this budget in one paragraph, how would you describe that?
Challenging.
That was one word. How challenging?
Challenging because any budget relies on a variety of things, some of which are outside of our control. One of which is what happens in Annapolis. And as we speak, there are an ongoing number of potential challenges for the county related to changing in formulas, related to changing in cost to the county that can undermine at least some portions of our budget. And so that's the challenge this year that was more acute than it has been over the last few years. So I would say challenging due to the unpredictability and the challenges we have in Annapolis that we are working diligently with our delegation to try to at least push back to some degree.
This is a $4.56 billion budget. Mm-hmm. It restores some of the services that have been cut back in the past. When you presented, you were actually very positive about it in the fact that it's not cutting back but restoring in a sense. Let's start with education.
Well, before we go there, I think we need to take a little bit of time to look at what happened over the last 5 years. I have to remind people that we've cut at least budgetary gaps of about $2.5 billion. We've eliminated 1,254 positions. We furloughed our employees. We changed our health plans. We changed our pension plans. We have not provided for COLAs or adjustments for our employees for now 3 years. And as a result of that, we have some gaps that we need to fill, from libraries to police department and a variety of other areas. And so what I've looked at in this budget is to, one, recognize what we've done in the past, but to say we're not going back there. We're not going back to the time of unsustainable budgets. We are moving forward in a very prudent, strategic manner. And so the adjustments that we made this year after 5 years of drastic cuts was more strategic to look at particular areas, and that's what I would like to concentrate on.
When it comes to education, there will be an increase for MCPS of over $50 million. Mm-hmm. And it will support the maintenance of effort level. Let's start with that. What does it do for education in Montgomery County? And then let's move on to what could be affected or impacted changes at the state level.
Well, this budget meets 100% of the requests from the Board of Education. So we are fully supporting the board's request, and we are meeting the maintenance of effort requirement in this budget. It's a $50 million increase, about a 2.6% increase overall. This is fairly significant given the fact that we've had over the last 5 years probably somewhere in the neighborhood of a 9% increase in the education budget overall for the last 5 years. At the very same time that the county government tax-supported budget had gone down essentially zero for 5 years. But education is a very, very strong priority in my opinion. It's that of the general public in Montgomery County, and so we want to fund it to give our young people the best chance for success in life. And so education continues to be the top priority. This is why we spend over 50% of our dollars into promoting and funding education throughout the county. But we have some changes in Annapolis that I think are gone a little bit too far in terms of the protection that all of us want to see happen, and there may be some unintended consequences that we need to address.
$50.7 million increase. What is their total budget today?
The total budget is about $2.3 billion, I think, overall in terms of the county's budget for education itself. Normally, it's about 56%, 56% of the entire $4.56 billion budget.
As you were going back and forth with department heads and, of course, with the superintendent, Dr. Joshua Starr, what was his feedback? Is he pleased with this budget? He seemed to be when you presented it, but he was also a little perhaps thinking about what could happen coming down from Annapolis?
Well, first of all, the process is not over. We still need to get the approval of the county council. And of course, there are some changes that could be made in Annapolis. But I think he's cautiously optimistic on terms of what we've done thus far. We have funded 100% of what they requested. But what you do is you build into the base and you build into the budgets for next year items that you have to come back and to continue to fund. And this is where you'd have some of that caution, i.e., you have to make certain you have the revenues available, you've done all the efficiencies that are needed, and you target those areas that you can make strategic adjustments, and you make certain that you can fund education at a level that I think this community expects. So I think that he's cautiously optimistic about it, but you can never be certain until all of these pieces have fallen in place. What happens in Annapolis, what happens in our overall economy, what happens with the county council, and at some point in time we'll get through all of those challenges, but right now I think he is cautiously optimistic.
Higher education, Montgomery College, they received 100% funding of what they requested?
Right. The funding request for them was relatively small, 0.2%, about $380,000. They've received over the past about 11% increase over the last 5 years, but the request this year was rather modest. They have a fairly healthy request on the capital budget, but the request in the operating budget is fairly moderate. But you have to keep in mind, one of the reasons why they were able to come in with a budget at this level is because they've increased tuition for their kids. And so as a result of that, the request from the county is not that great. But keep in mind what that does. It may force some kids to be out of the reach of, of a good educational system here in the county. It may force some people to be in classes that may be a little bit larger than usual. So there's a trade-off here. Right now, that trade-off is to increase student tuition and not have a huge request from the county. But you can only do that for so long, because at some point it will have an adverse effect on enrollment, it will have an adverse effect on the number of kids in school, and it will have an adverse effect on those who otherwise would not be able to afford to go to college because of the increased tuition.
Let's talk public safety, because I think you recommended about, what, 37.7, almost $38 million of additional spending to go towards the fire department and the police department. Increase at the fire department, what, 9% or so? Mm-hmm. What is that going to buy?
Well, we hope to buy even greater public support for public safety. And that public safety will come in a variety of forms. Increased police on the street, increased response time for our fire and rescue services, increased equipment and the ability and training for our people, and a variety of things that I think will provide even greater safety for our community.
We're going to take a small break, and when we come back, we're going to continue talking about public safety and the police department. We'll be right back, and we'll continue here one-on-one with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. Welcome back to One-on-One with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. I'm Lorna Virgili, and we're talking about the FY13 operating budget for Montgomery County. Before we went to the commercial break, we were talking about increases. Why were they necessary, especially on the public safety front?
Well, if you go back and look at the county's master plan, we had a master plan that calls for an additional 250 officers over a 5-year period, approximately 50 per year. This plan that I'm talking about now, the increase on the police side, is a 150 officer increase. That is over 3 years, adding about 45 per year, thereabouts. I think that that's a more measured response to the challenges we have related to public safety. We have large segments of the county that are now growing in the upper portions of the county, in Clarksburg, in Germantown, and in Gatesburg, Montgomery Village, as well as a continued presence in the East County. And so we have a larger geographical area to cover. We have larger numbers of people in different parts of the county, and we need to have that presence in a variety of places throughout the county. So having a smaller police force does not allow us the flexibility to cover all of the beats at the level that we want. So this is a 3-year plan. I want people to understand this. This is the first of a 3-year plan. We anticipated increasing the size of the police officers up to about 140. In addition to that, we have the same concerns related to the fire and rescue services. There's a great demand of county. We have huge traffic throughout the county, so we need to place stations in different locations throughout the county. We need to have the equipment, the public safety personnel, EMS services, and all of those in strategic locations throughout the county. So the most efficient way to do that is to increase both the police and the fire and rescue service. We're doing a lot of that right now, but we're doing it by way of overtime, and it's not the most efficient and the best way to utilize the sources of strength that we have. We need to augment that with additional police, additional fire personnel, and to respond to the challenges we have throughout this vast county of nearly 500 square miles.
Now, your budget restores approximately 92 positions, employees, Montgomery County, and out of those, approximately 48 would be police officers for this fiscal year 2013, correct?
Now, approximately 58 would be public safety personnel.
Public safety,
yeah.
48 police officers
right.
or so.
And you have about 15 that will be in the library system. I think about 11 in the transit service, because we're adding some additional transit routes in the county to cover places that we need to have additional services. So when you add the transit services, additional bus drivers, you add the additional personnel for the libraries, which is about 15, and you add the 58 police officers, that covers about 92 of, that covers basically all of that 92, a few scattered through other departments. But keep in mind, we eliminated 1,254 positions. Despite the growth that we've had in the county, despite the vast geographical areas that we have to cover, we're simply only adding back 92 additional personnel, and 58 of that is in fire and rescue and police department.
Now, going back to the police department, the initial resources, where are they going to be allocated? I think this is a question for perhaps the chief,
yeah.
police chief, but you're the county executive, we're sitting here together, so initial resources, where are they going to go?
Certainly you're right, I'm not the police chief, and what I'm trying to do is make certain that the chief has the resources overall that he needs in order to deploy and to get to all of the areas in the county that we think are important and priority. Most of that, the vast majority of that will be for police officers, patrol officers. I think that he will increase some of the detectives and try to make certain that we are responding to some of the hot prime areas throughout the county. But the details of that and how they are deployed could vary from time to time, and so I think that's the more appropriate question to ask of the chief in terms of the utilization, because his answers will give you a more detailed analysis of where he thinks they should be deployed. Again, they may change at different parts of the times of the year in order to respond to things that are there. My job, my responsibility is to make certain we have a police chief who is competent, and he is, with the leadership that we need, and provide the resources that our police need in order to respond to the challenges of public safety, and that's what I'm doing.
You mentioned, okay, I'll go back and ask him then. You mentioned 15 positions restored within the libraries, and while you were doing the budget town hall meetings around the county, one of the most vocal forces were the people pro the libraries, because it's been one of the departments that's seen consecutive cuts, just like every other department, but perhaps they on a higher rate. You're satisfied what you're bringing back to the libraries? Because needless to say, there was a large amount of residents that came out actively and were very adamant about restoring some of the services in the libraries.
Well, I'm not totally satisfied. I think that I am pleased with the steps we're making towards satisfaction. And satisfaction, you have to keep in mind that we had at one point a library system that received somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 million a year. We were down in the mid-20s over the last couple of years because of the drastic cuts. They had over a 30% cut in the libraries, and you simply cannot run a first-rate library system with that amount of money. And so what we've tried to do is to gradually increase the level of support for libraries that will provide us with additional material, provide us with additional personnel, increase the hours and length of hours in more libraries throughout the county, have weekend, Saturday, and Sunday services that are longer. This is the way we need to respond to that, but I'm not satisfied where we are. It is moving towards satisfaction because we still have a very long ways to go. When people look at the additional $2 million that we placed in the libraries this year, people should not be confused, because some may look at that and assume that that's a fairly significant increase. That's a 10% increase. But keep in mind that they've been reduced by 30%, and so we still have a very, very long ways to go to get to the kind of system that I think that we would have. And hopefully at that point in time, I may get to a level of satisfaction. I'm not quite there yet.
Let's transition to the Department of Recreation and some of the programs they offer for two large populations in the county, the youth population and the growing senior population in the county. When it comes to the positive youth development initiatives or programs, what has been restored under your recommended budget?
Well, what we try to do in the recreation department is almost a $1.8 million increase. We've had some real challenges with our young people, and what we've done over the last few years is to put together what we call a positive youth initiative, a program designed to, in effect, provide some positive outlets for our young people to participate in. We've not had the resources in the past to, in effect, provide all of the elements of support that we wanted. We have to scale it back, but we have the framework in place. I was pushed, rightfully so, by Councilmember Nancy Navarro to make certain that in this budget we reflect what she and I both believe are some very strong elements for our young people. And so we've tried to respond to that in terms of a positive youth initiative and to provide the funds and resources to programs that too long in the past have been neglected.
Let's take another short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the programs restored for the senior population in Montgomery County. We're talking with County Executive Ike Leggett. We'll be right back. Welcome back to 101 with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. I'm LORNA VIRGILI. Thank you for watching. And we were talking about the 1.8 increase for the Department of Recreation. What are some of the elements for the senior population, as a matter of fact?
Well, one of the programs that I think that I really like is to provide programs after school. That is, enrichment programs for academic enrichment, athletic programs, Excel Beyond the Bell, some mentorship programs that we have for young people, all designed to give them positive outlets to do things that would help them both in school as well as preparing them for life. And so those are the kinds of programs and initiatives that I think this Positive Youth Initiative will provide in this budget.
Let's switch to another vulnerable population in the county, which is the senior population, growing senior population, which was also very actively participant during your town hall meetings. What are they going to receive as far as restored programs through your recommended budget?
Well, first of all, we are moving again to ensure that the programs we put in place years ago we can properly fund. And so what we are funding this year are some increases in a variety of things for seniors. Number one is to try to make certain that seniors age better in place in the residence they have, and so we are providing some assistance and support for that. Secondly, the big area for many of our seniors is transportation. The inability to get around the county, to make many of the appointments and to do things independently in their lives. And so what we have not been able to do in the past is to fund programs like the Call-In Ride and others at a level that all of them could afford. So we're reducing the price on that and hopefully getting to more seniors so they can utilize that program. And we also have a pilot program that will assist us to look at some other approaches in terms of transportation for the future. One program that we've initiated here in terms of housing is to construct in the Silver Spring area a senior housing for low-income seniors, a 140-unit project, $1.5 million, part of our contribution now, with another $4.5 million coming next year and the year after that, so that we will respond to some of the real challenges of our seniors where they simply cannot afford to live in the county, and we need to reverse that. So we are addressing a number of programs in health, mental health, in transportation, and in housing, and some of the support programs for seniors to age in place in their homes.
You were talking about the development of these 140 units in Silver Spring for seniors. Let's talk about affordable housing as well in the county. What else is included in your recommended budget for low-income residents in the county as far as affordable housing?
Well, in our housing initiative program, we have approximately $17 million that we are utilizing for that, plus another $12 to $15 million in the capital program that we have to address that. That's not at the level that I would want. I would want to at least have a minimum of about $25 million in the Housing Initiative Fund and another $25 million in the capital fund as well. But it allows us the flexibility to partner with many in the private sector to leverage the monies that we have in order to assure that we get to as many projects that we possibly can. It has been a terrific boom for us. Over the last 4 years, we've either preserved, conserved, or maintained, rebuilt somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 affordable units in the county. There's still a great need that's out there, and hopefully this program, with the assistance and support of the private sector, will be able to expand and grow in the foreseeable future.
Let's talk about county employees. For the last 3 years, they have not received any increase.
Yeah.
Furlough employees the last year or the last 2 years, and so forth. Some county employees are going to receive some lump sum compensation. How was that negotiated, and is it going to be all county employees or the ones that belong to certain unions?
All county employees, and we're talking here about a $2,000 cash payment. This is not into the base. This is not part of an increment. It is simply a one-time cash payment. Unfortunately, we had to do that because of the uncertainties about the foreseeable future related to the budget. I want to make certain that we can afford our budgets in a sustainable manner going forward. To place this into increments or a cost of living built into the base at this point in time, I think would be premature. Our employees have done a terrific job. We've been able to make a lot of savings and progress in our budget because of the sacrifices of employees. They've been furloughed. They've had their COLAs reduced. They've not received increments for the last 3 years. And they've had their health policies changed as well as their pension changed. Yet and still, they come to work each and every day, and they do a fantastic job for us. And we cannot go forward without at least trying to provide them with some level of additional support. This step, or the $2,000, was a way in which to recognize that, but certainly is not the way to go forward in terms of the long-term prospects for our employees.
Now the $4 billion question. Where is all this money going to come from?
Well, part of it comes from the savings that we've had based on the things that we've done in the past few years. That is to save the $2.5 billion, that our budgets today, at least on the surface, are more sustainable. Secondly, we've had a great deal of efficiency and effectiveness throughout these budgets over the last 5 years that have helped us as well. And clearly we received some level of state support, not enough, but the level of state support that has helped us, and I'm grateful for the people in Annapolis and our delegation for what they've done to help us. But in the last year or so, we've had the energy tax, which provided somewhere in the neighborhood of $115 million, plus the cellular telephone tax that was introduced a couple of years ago. I recommend very strongly that we continue the tax and we not phase this tax out, we not sunset that. That helps us to provide some level of stability going forward, especially for what we know our obligations are today and what I predict that they would be in the foreseeable future. We cannot meet that without some level of increased revenue, as well as these cuts that I've made as well. So that's the approach that we have. On the property tax side, it is a standstill budget. You will not see any appreciable change. I think the most you may see $4. We are confident that if we stay fairly close to the budget blueprint outline that I've outlined for the county council in my recommendation, this is a budget that is affordable, one that is sustainable, and one that will position us very well for the foreseeable future.
Talking about the future, this budget restores, increases some of the cutbacks from the past. How do you foresee next year?
Well,
I mean, we still have to go through this year, but let's look into the future. Are we recovering? Is Montgomery County recovering in some sort of way?
We are, but not at the pace that I want, and there are still so many questions that are unanswered. And I'm not going to rush ahead knowing the uncertainties and build in costs and make promises that I cannot fulfill for the future. We'll take a very cautious, prudent approach to this budget, and we hope to build on the successes of the past, but this cautious approach that I've outlined. And I think by doing that, we are in a good position for sustainable budgets going forward. But we have to do this cautiously, but I think optimistically that we're in a much better position today than we were 4 or 5 years ago.
Next up, County Council has to approve your budget by June 1st.
Yes.
And it will kick in July 1st, a month later. Let's hope that everything goes well with Annapolis and that the county can continue moving forward in this direction.
I hope so, and I'm reasonably optimistic about our prospects, both in Annapolis and with approval of this budget, at least the general principles of this. And for the most part, if you look at the budgets, probably about 98, 99% of the budgets have generally been approved, similar to the recommendations that we've made.
Well, thank you so much, Mr.
Thank
Leggett,
you.
for sitting with us here again. I know it's a lot of numbers, perhaps a little confusing for our viewers, confusing for me, not for you, because you've been doing this for months now. But thank you so much for being so candid.
Thank you for
today.
having me.
And if you need more information, you can view the entire budget in the county's website at montgomerycountymd.gov/OMB. I'm Lorna Virgili. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon.